The blanket vanished from the laundry room that night. 3 days later, it was found wrapped around a body at the base of a slope in the Angeles National Forest. Sheylla Cabrera's disappearance didn't begin with a scream or a door slamming in the night. It began with silence. A mother of 3. A normal Tuesday night in Lancaster. And the next morning, she was gone. No one could remember the last time they saw her. No neighbors heard anything unusual. There was no final message, no half-written note. Only one thing disappeared along with Sheylla: a silver-gray moving blanket, the kind people use to wrap furniture in storage. Security footage from the apartment complex showed something that sent chills through investigators. Her husband, Sheylla Cabrera, silently dragging a large object wrapped in that exact same blanket out of their home and into his car. No rush, no panic, just a cold, methodical calm in every movement. 3 days later, the blanket, and what it had been hiding, was discovered at the bottom of a remote ravine in Angeles National Forest. Police called it murder. Her family called it a silent nightmare. And the community? They're asking, how does a woman disappear in the middle of America, and no one even starts looking? Sheylla Cabrera, 33 years old, mother of 3. She once dreamed of opening a small bakery in Lancaster. She was the kind of woman who'd hand out bags of toasted bread to the homeless every Saturday morning. Her mother called her the sunshine in a house filled with shadows. The day Sheylla disappeared, it didn't rain. Trash pickup ran on schedule. The kids made it to school on time. What vanished wasn't just a person. It was the space she left behind. A silence between 3 children too young to ask where their mother went, and a husband staring blankly into his own security camera, saying nothing. This isn't just a story about disappearance. It's about being erased from attention. When the missing woman is a Latina mother living in an aging apartment complex on the outskirts of town. When the man suspected is her husband, who fled the country with their 3 kids before the police ever spoke. This is the story of Sheylla, and a justice that came, if it came at all, far too late. Sheylla lived on the 3rd floor of an old beige building in East Lancaster, California. Nothing special, chipped iron railings, AC units humming through the day, and rows of cars squeezed under scraggly trees. But to her kids, it was their whole world. Neighbors called her Shay with the quick smile. She'd rush her kids into the elevator every morning, one hand gripping a lunchbox, the other pulling the sleepiest one along. Everyone knew Sheylla, but no one really knew how she lived. She was born in Peru, came to the U.S. at 12 with her mother, Helga Rosillo, a soft-voiced woman with a low, gentle accent. They moved through small towns across California, taking whatever work they could find. Motel housekeeping, dishwashing, hospital janitorial shifts. Shay was always the first one up, the last one to sleep, her mother said. She started working at 16, just to help buy milk for her baby brother. She met Josimar when she was 19. He was also a Peruvian immigrant working at a car wash near downtown LA. It started with rides to work, then cheap dinners, then a silver ring, no wedding. They moved to Lancaster, looking for somewhere affordable to raise kids and start over. By day, Sheylla worked as a caregiver at a local nursing home. Her shift ran from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. She'd come home with stained shoes and the faint smell of antiseptic on her sleeves. But no matter how tired she was, Sunday nights were for baking banana bread. So the kids could wake up to something warm, smelling like home, she once said. One of her children, her oldest daughter, just 9, told a teacher, "Mom never eats. She always gives her share to the baby." Neighbors said they sometimes saw Sheylla alone on the balcony after 10 p.m., kitchen lights still on, a cold cup of tea in her hand, staring out toward the Angeles Hills, the very place where her body would later be found. But there were things even those closest to her didn't know. That she'd tried to leave Josimar twice. That she met secretly with a lawyer in July. That in her phone, there was a note titled Plan A. Just 3 lines. Passport, cash, pickup. Maybe Sheylla was ready to go. But what she didn't expect was that someone else would go first and choose a different way. In Lancaster, leaving isn't easy. Not when you're a single mother. Not with 3 kids, a minimum wage job, and immigration paperwork still in process. Not when your husband is the only one with a car. Not when every argument means calculating how much is in your wallet and how many nights you could afford if you ran. According to police, Josimar was never reported for physical abuse. But neighbors heard shouting, doors slamming, children crying. Once the building manager saw Sheylla at the bottom of the stairs, frozen, cradling her sleeping toddler, while Josimar shouted something from the balcony above. "I remember her face," the manager said. It wasn't fear, it was exhaustion. Sheylla rarely complained. She worked. She came home. She took care of the kids. She sent money to her mom in New Jersey, who was raising her newest grandchild. Her co-workers at the nursing home said she always kept a little pink lipstick in her scrub pocket, just for the end of her shift. "Just so I don't look too pale when I get home to the kids," she once joked. She lived simply, and she dreamed simply. A peaceful apartment, a steady job, a tiny tent where all 3 kids could camp one summer in Sequoia. A dream she wrote down on a sticky note taped to the fridge. Summer dream 2026, first campout. On the last day anyone saw Sheylla, nothing stood out. No loud fight. No warning signs. She had called out sick 2 days earlier saying she needed rest. She didn't reply to her coworkers' group messages, but that wasn't unusual. People assumed she was just laying low, or busy with the kids. But her mother knew. Helga said Sheylla called that Monday night and said something strange. "Keep the bank book safe, okay? I might send something this weekend." No goodbye. No explanation. The call lasted 42 seconds. 2 days later, security footage caught Josimar dragging a large, wrapped object out of their apartment. After that, everything fell to pieces. The community around her had grown used to silence. People disappearing. People leaving quietly. Mothers who vanish, not because they want to, but because no one thought they mattered enough to hold on to. But Sheylla never left. She stayed. In her absence. In the bread she never got to bake. In the eyes that once stared out at the hills of Angeles, which now, too, have gone quiet. August 12, 2025. Began with an unusual silence. That morning, the door to apartment 3B, where Sheylla lived, never opened. No sound of kids running down to the parking lot. No Sheylla with her breakfast bag nodding hurried goodbyes to neighbors. The garbage man figured the family had gone out of town. But by afternoon, when one of Sheylla's coworkers called to say she hadn't shown up for work, everything began to unravel. Helga, Sheylla's mother, was the first to feel uneasy. She called her daughter at 9 a.m., no answer. At noon, she tried again. This time, it went straight to voicemail. Helga texted Josimar. No reply. By evening, she contacted one of Sheylla's close friends, a former coworker who lived nearby, and asked her to check in. The apartment door was locked. No lights on, but what disturbed the friend most was the total silence inside. No TV, no kids, nothing. It was like the apartment had been frozen mid-motion. That night, Helga called Lancaster police to file a missing person report, but authorities noted that Sheylla was an adult and had only been out of contact for less than 24 hours. No signs of violence, no immediate danger. They promised to file the report, but did not begin an investigation. The next morning, something strange happened. One of the children, the 9-year-old daughter, called her aunt in New Jersey from an unknown number. Her voice was small, broken. "Daddy said we're going on a trip," she whispered. "But Mommy's not coming." The call lasted less than a minute. The aunt panicked. She called the number back, but it was already disconnected. Helga contacted the police again, this time requesting they review the apartment building's security cameras. It was an older system, maintained by a contracted security guard. It took almost 2 full days for authorities to retrieve the footage, and that's when everything changed. On the tape, at 3 o'clock a.m. on August 13th, Josimar appears. White t-shirt, alone. He's dragging a large object, roughly the size of a human body, wrapped in a silver-gray moving blanket, down to the parking lot. The image isn't clear. There's no blood, no visible violence, but something feels very wrong. He turns toward the camera for a single second, then keeps going, loads the object into the back of a black SUV. The trunk closes. The car drives off. No one ever sees Sheylla again. August 14th. 3 days after losing contact with her daughter, Helga flies from New Jersey to California. When she arrives in Lancaster, she heads straight to apartment 3B. The police had already performed a basic wellness check that morning. No signs of a struggle. No blood. No broken locks. No trashed furniture. But in the kitchen, Helga freezes. The silver moving blanket, the one they always kept folded in the garage, is gone. The laundry room where she once helped Sheylla organize supplies is intact, except for that missing blanket. In the bedroom, the bed is still made, but half of Sheylla's closet is empty. A few clothes tossed on the chair. No phone, no laptop, but her work ID, medical papers, and a small red notebook are still in the drawer. Helga opens it. Inside, handwritten notes in Spanish, scattered with bits of English. One entry stops her cold. Si algo me pasa, por favor cuida a mis niños. Mamá, no ignores tus sueños. A veces, ellos hablan más claro que las palabras. If something happens to me, please take care of my children. Mama, don't ignore your dreams. Sometimes they speak louder than words. Helga brings the notebook to police. They take it, but offer no official statement. Meanwhile, questions begin spreading through the community. Co-workers at the nursing home start posting about Sheylla on Facebook. Neighbors whisper about the security footage, the silver blanket, and strange sounds heard that morning. Footsteps hurrying. An engine starting at 3 a.m. August 15th. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department formally takes over the case. It's no longer a missing person report. It's now a suspected homicide. The first news report runs that evening. 18 seconds. A single photo of Sheylla flashes on the screen. Not a wedding picture. Not her Facebook profile. It's her work ID. Washed out by the camera flash. That same day, another lead emerges. Tracking data reveals the SUV from the footage left California on the morning of August 13th. GPS last pinged near Tucson, Arizona. Then, nothing. No one can reach Josimar. No calls. No texts. And the 3 children. Gone, too. It's like they've vanished off the map. But the most haunting question remains unspoken. If that object in the footage was Sheylla's body, how could it be dragged out like that? In a neighborhood with dozens of cameras. And no one stopped it? August 16th. A volunteer search team, 3 park rangers and 2 local officers, begins sweeping a section of Angeles National Forest over an hour's drive from Lancaster. They don't have concrete evidence, but one traffic camera on Highway 2 picked up the SUV passing through in the early morning hours of August 13th. This is where forest becomes steep terrain, where years of erosion have carved sharp ridges and narrow trails that fall into dry ravines. There's no cell signal here, just wind, carrying the scent of metal and scorched grass. At 10:48 a.m., Ranger Carlos Rodriguez spots something strange beneath a loose slope, a strip of silver-gray fabric caught in the brush. As he approaches, he sees it's not just a cover. It's wrapped around something irregular in shape. There's a strong odor rising from beneath the folds. Carlos doesn't open it. He steps back and radios the base. 2 hours later, the area is sealed off. Forensics arrive by early afternoon, with cameras, gloves, and body bags. Inside the blanket, a woman's body in early decomposition. No ID. She's wearing a white t-shirt with a faded floral print and light blue jeans. On her left wrist, a deep scrape. On the right, a stretched out hair tie. The description matches what Sheylla was last seen wearing. Helga is notified later that day. She's silent for a long time, then asks, "Where are my grandchildren?" Police have no answer. They still can't locate Josimar or the kids. The only thing they know is that he left the country. Travel records show he flew from Phoenix to Miami, then boarded a connecting flight to Lima, Peru, with all 3 children. The case is immediately handed to the LA County District Attorney. On August 18th, an international arrest warrant is issued. First-degree murder. But by then, Sheylla Cabrera is beyond reach. At least for now. That night, Sheylla's name is mentioned for the first time on local television. The clip is just 40 seconds. Footage shows the quiet apartment complex, the winding road into Angeles Forest, and a black body bag being lifted from the hillside. No one cries on camera. No music plays. Just footsteps, a distant lens whirring, and the cold rustle of mountain wind across the mic. For many, that's the moment Sheylla's story truly began. When someone goes missing, the first question people ask is, who saw them last? In Sheylla Cabrera's case, that person was Josimar. The problem is, Josimar is no longer in the United States to answer that question. With the 3 children now in Peru and the sole suspect out of U.S. jurisdiction, the investigation quickly slipped into a blind zone. No testimony. No voice from the person at the center of it all. All police had left were video clips, secondhand accounts, and fragments from the quiet, ordinary life Sheylla once led. A downstairs neighbor recalled hearing heavy footsteps around 3 a.m. on August 13th, right when cameras showed Josimar dragging a large object. Someone said they heard a car trunk open, then the engine start. But no one called the police, because it was Josimar. He often left early, sometimes to work, sometimes to pack things. It was that sense of normalcy that made the abnormal go unnoticed. Meanwhile, police uncovered another piece of footage from the lobby camera. It showed something subtle but strange. At exactly 1:26 a.m., the lights in apartment 3B went out. 30 minutes later, they came back on. No one entered or exited. No sound. No images from inside. Police believe this might have been the moment everything changed. But there's no proof. Another contradiction came from Helga, Sheylla's mother. She said Sheylla had been preparing to leave Josimar, gathering documents, saving money, even reaching out to a women's shelter in Pasadena. But co-workers told a different story. They said Sheylla had recently said things were getting better, that Josimar had started listening. One close friend recalled her saying, "If he's really trying, I'll stay for the kids." So, was she planning to leave or trying to heal the relationship? And then, a detail shattered every theory. The autopsy report showed no obvious cause of death. No stab wounds. No gunshots. Possibly suffocation. But it could also have been poisoning, or even a natural collapse, made hard to determine by decomposition. No defensive wounds. No foreign DNA under the nails. The silence of her death was as unclear as her final days. It raised a chilling new possibility. What if Sheylla didn't die from violence? What if her body gave out from exhaustion or despair? And what Josimar did afterward was clean up, not kill. It's a brutal theory, but one investigators had to consider. And from there, the entire story began to shift. The apartment building had 4 floors, split into 2 wings with 3 main cameras, one in the lobby, one in the parking lot, and one in the 3rd floor hallway, right outside apartment 3B. But the hallway camera had been broken since early July. The building manager had even posted a notice. 3rd floor camera under repair. Apologies for the inconvenience. So initially, police believed there was no footage from the hallway, until a neighbor, an elderly woman named Margot Eldridge, 78 years old, from Unit 3D, stepped forward with a small device, an old doorbell camera. "I knew the hallway camera was out, so I put this up just to see who knocked on my door," she said. But it caught part of the hallway too. Her son had backed up the footage when he heard about Sheylla's disappearance. In those files, police found one clip, exactly 42 seconds long, recorded at 1:13 a.m. on August 13th. The video is shaky. The hallway light is dim, but the image is unmistakable. Sheylla Cabrera steps out of her apartment, alone, wearing shorts and an oversized t-shirt, no shoes. She walks to Margot's door and stands there. 10 seconds. She lifts her hand, maybe to knock, but hesitates. She turns her head toward the camera. Half her face is in shadow. Her expression, unclear. Fear? Emptiness? She never knocks. She turns around and disappears from the frame. That's the last time anyone saw her move. The clip overturned everything. If she left the apartment at 1:13 a.m., then the moment Josimar was seen dragging something at 3 a.m. happened nearly 2 hours later. So what happened between 1:13 and 3 o'clock? There's only one way from that hallway to the parking lot. But there's no footage of Sheylla leaving. Not through the lobby. Not via the fire escape. No elevator swipe. She walked out of her apartment and was never seen again. Police began reconsidering. Did she go back inside? Was there a confrontation after that? Or was it something else entirely? And among all the questions, one unsettled everyone the most. Why did Sheylla step out, reach for a neighbor's door in the middle of the night, then stop? When asked, Margot simply said, "I should have left the porch light on. Maybe if she saw someone was awake, she would have knocked." A heartbreaking possibility that Sheylla was looking for someone, but the world didn't answer. So she went back to the one place that maybe sealed her fate. August 20th. 1 week after her body was discovered, a man walked into the Lancaster police station. Light gray shirt, trimmed hair, carrying an old leather briefcase. His name was Armando Terrazas, a former neighbor of Sheylla's, now living in Santa Clarita. "This might not mean anything," he said, "but I think I saw Josimar in Angeles National Forest 2 days before the news broke." At first, police were skeptical, but Armando had a phone video. August 11th, 5:27 p.m. He was walking along a dirt path off Highway 2, filming a patch of forest. Just a few seconds. Blurry, but in the background, a tall man in a dark jacket standing among the trees, like he was measuring something. GPS coordinates from the video placed at less than 800 meters from where Sheylla's body was found. Zooming in, police noticed the man wore green Nike sneakers, the same ones Josimar had on in the parking lot footage. If that timestamp was correct, Josimar had been at the disposal site nearly 40 hours before Sheylla disappeared. That flipped the timeline entirely. If he picked the location, surveyed it, prepared it in advance, then the theory that Sheylla's death was accidental no longer held. This wasn't reaction. It was premeditation. But still, why didn't he delete the footage? Why leave such a clear shot of himself dragging the blanket? Why wait almost 2 hours after Sheylla left her apartment to move? Or did Sheylla return? And what happened after, only he knows. Then came a disturbing new lead from the apartment manager. Josimar had a spare key to the unit downstairs, he said. It was under renovation, no one living there. He said he used it to check the AC sometimes. But that week, he never gave the key back. Police searched the empty unit. No blood. No visible signs of struggle. But in a utility closet behind the kitchen, they found faint footprints, matching Josimar's shoe size. No forensics, but it left a chilling shadow. What if Sheylla had been held there, trapped between floors, while the world assumed she was already gone? And if that's true, then the clip of her outside Margot's door wasn't the moment before she disappeared. It was the last moment. She had a choice: to knock, to run, to ask for help. But she turned back, maybe for her children, maybe believing she still had time. She didn't. At a time when the entire community believed Josimar was the killer, supported by video, circumstantial evidence, and his sudden flight out of the country, an unexpected discovery by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department flipped the narrative. August 22nd. Police recovered backup data from Sheylla's phone, the one missing from the apartment, via CloudSync. Among texts, photos, and notes, there was a single voice memo, 2 minutes and 17 seconds long, titled simply, "Voice Test." But the timestamp told a different story. It was recorded on August 12th at 10:44 p.m., the night she disappeared. In the recording, Sheylla's voice is quiet, whispering, like she's hiding in a closed room. "If anything happens, it's not my fault. I just want my kids safe. And if someone finds this, please know, it's not just him watching me. There's someone else. I don't know his name, but he has a key." That last sentence cut through every assumption built around the case. It's not just him, not just Josimar. Police launched a broader investigation. They reviewed every visitor logged near the apartment in the past 30 days. One man stood out. He appeared 5 times on security footage. Not a resident. Not on any official work order. A middle-aged man wearing sunglasses, in a plumber's uniform. His last recorded visit? August 12th, 4:12 p.m., less than 7 hours before Sheylla vanished. Building management confirmed no one had been scheduled for repairs that day. Police traced the work van's plates. It was registered to a fake company, located on an empty lot in San Bernardino. Traffic cameras lost track of the van after that day. The lead was thin, but 2 puzzle pieces suddenly aligned. Sheylla's recorded warning, and a man with a key. Helga remembered something. Sheylla had once told her she suspected someone had entered the apartment while she was at work. The flower vase was rotated. The kitchen towel was folded differently. She brushed it off, thought she was being paranoid. But what truly scared her, Helga said, was the day the baby monitor camera in her bedroom rotated by itself. No one was home. No one touched it. My daughter was scared, Helga said. Not just of her husband, but of the feeling that someone was always watching. And when you live in a cheap apartment, with fragile locks, no one monitoring security systems, that fear becomes real, lethal even. 4 days after the voice memo was recovered, California's Department of Justice Cyber Unit tracked the IP signals of the baby monitor Sheylla had used, a low-cost model purchased online, Wi-Fi connected. What most people don't know is that older models like these have major vulnerabilities. Anyone with the original access code can log in remotely, and just as feared, Sheylla's monitor had been accessed multiple times from an outside network, not from her home, but from a public Wi-Fi hotspot at a laundromat just 3 blocks away. The last login was at 11:12 p.m., August 12th, less than 30 minutes before Sheylla was seen stepping into the hallway for the final time. Investigators checked surveillance from the laundromat, and there he was, the same man in the plumber's uniform, sitting near the router, staring into a small laptop screen. His cap read, El Camino Services, but there is no such company registered in California. A clearer picture emerged. This wasn't random. This wasn't someone passing through. This was a stalker. Deliberate, calculated, and possibly someone who'd been watching Sheylla for a long time. Helga shared another memory. There was a time, she said, when Sheylla would tell her, "Someone's always watching when I come home." She said she felt followed. Once a package showed up at her door, though she hadn't ordered anything. Inside was a single handkerchief, embroidered with the letter S. Police now believe this was the behavior of a fixated stalker, the kind that starts by observing silently, then escalates. They dug into old records and found a police report from 2023, never fully investigated, in which Sheylla called to report a man standing outside her door, staring silently for minutes before walking away. By the time officers arrived, he was gone. The case was closed. No one followed up. But the photo Sheylla snapped through the peephole was still on file. Experts compared the photo to the plumber footage. Same bone structure, same build, same man. And then came the final chilling connection. This man had once been a patient at the nursing home where Sheylla worked. He had received temporary psychiatric treatment, transferred out after 2 months, and then vanished from the system, from patient to stalker, from a blurred face in security footage to the dark shadow behind Sheylla's death. And while everyone had been pointing to Josimar, it's possible the person who took Sheylla's life never left Lancaster. He was just never seen. Until now. There's a moment in every case when the investigation stops building toward answers, and instead collapses into chaos. For Sheylla Cabrera, that moment came when detectives unlocked data from a backup phone Josimar had left behind before fleeing the country. Inside a hidden photo folder, typically used to store private images, they found a single photo that stopped everyone cold. It was a picture of a handwritten page. 3 names: Sheylla, Helga, Olivia. Below each name, a number. And at the bottom of the page, 1 line: must choose one. Investigators couldn't determine where the photo was taken, but the metadata showed the date, August 5th, exactly 1 week before Sheylla disappeared. There was one problem. No one in the police file was named Olivia, until Helga saw the image. She froze, then said quietly, "Olivia is my birth name. I changed it legally when I came to the US. In an instant, this wasn't just a murder investigation anymore. It became a tangle of old names, buried secrets, and wounds that had never healed. And then Helga confessed something no one had ever known. She once had a husband, Sheylla's biological father, who vanished without a trace in Peru in 1999. No one ever found him. No one was charged. Helga left the country that same year, bringing her daughter and the silence of what had happened with her. When asked by police, "Do you think Josimar knew about this?" Helga paused for a long time, then said, Maybe she told him. Maybe he knew something about my past that I've tried to forget. If that's true, then Sheylla may have been caught in the undertow of someone else's unfinished story. Her death, not just the end of a mother's life, but the echo of an old, hidden history, buried under silence. Police were no longer just investigating Josimar or the mysterious man in the plumber's uniform. They began digging into old Peruvian records, missing persons cases, connections that on paper looked unrelated, but now seemed tied by invisible threads. And in the meantime, viewers, family, and the community began asking, was this really a personal tragedy or part of something deeper? and quieter than anyone realized. As detectives combed through immigration files, they uncovered something never previously declared. Sheylla's original name had been Sheylla Rosillo Vega, and in her Peruvian school records, there was a disturbing gap. She had been listed as missing for a full year, 2004 to 2005. She would have been 13, Xiaoheng. No explanation, no follow-up, just a blank space. But buried in a 2010 therapy intake from when she was newly a mother, Sheylla once said, "I know what it's like to be held somewhere, even when the door isn't locked. I learned silence from someone no one thought was dangerous. No one asked more. No one followed up." Now, investigators face a grim possibility that Sheylla had been a victim long before she ever reached America, that she carried that fear for years, and maybe, just maybe, the person who once silenced her came back. Because some cases don't begin the day someone disappears. They begin long before that, when no one ever listened in the first place. August 28th, 2025. Sheylla Cabrera's funeral was held in a small church in Palmdale. No priest, no long eulogy, just a handful of old friends, her mother, and a few coworkers from the nursing home where she once worked. No one knew where her 3 children were. No one could say for sure who was responsible. And worse, no one really believed the system would ever find the truth. Helga stood before the closed casket, gripping a photo of Sheylla and her eldest daughter, taken on a quiet Sunday morning, both in floral dresses. She whispered, "I'm sorry, baby girl. I should have believed you from the start." The small plaque on the casket read, "Sheylla Cabrera, beloved daughter, fierce mother, gone too soon. No birth year, because no one was sure anymore when she was born." Sheylla's story didn't end with justice. No trial, no confession, only silence, heavy and thick, like the earth of the Angeles forest that had covered her body. But even without a conclusion, her story did one thing. It made people look closer at how the system overlooks women of color when they speak up, at the invisibility of immigrant mothers who live among us, working the jobs no one wants, raising children in silence, and disappearing just as quietly, at the truth that sometimes people are only remembered after they're gone. A small group called Justice for Sheylla was formed by her friends, not to catch a killer. They were too tired to believe that would happen, but to remind the world that Sheylla lived, that she loved, that she feared, that she fought, that she once reached out and no one heard her. And that maybe, somewhere in our communities, there are still people like her living beside us, staying silent, because they believe no one cares. But we can care. We have to care. Because if we don't, what disappears isn't just a person, it's our humanity.